Hey, welcome back to the podcast.
Hey everybody.
This is Tyler.
And this is Meg.
Okay. And so today we are going to talk about another single movie. We're doing another movie review.
Yep.
This will be our second movie review.
And it's fresh in our minds because we just watched it last night.
Yep, and it might be fresh in some of your minds because it just came out a couple days ago, maybe a week.
And it's a Netflix original, right?
Yeah, it's either a Netflix original or produced by Netflix or, one of those. This movie is called The Ritual.
I hadn't heard of it, but you said that you've been hearing some buzz about it, right?
Yeah, I was hearing a little bit about it on Reddit, and I had seen that it had an okay Rotten Tomatoes score. It was like 69, 70, something like that.
It's pretty average for Rotten Tomatoes.
Some people were calling it out as not really being a great horror movie. Some people were calling it out as being a really good horror movie. I think that I'm kind of split on it, but we'll get into it.
Yeah, me too. So should we start with no spoilers and then maybe talk about spoilers in a bit?
I was thinking this movie's perfect for that format.
Yeah.
We could talk about a little bit about the plot and
our general
how
thoughts.
We felt in general about the whole thing, and then go into some spoilers about what happens in the third act and continue talking about how we liked the entire thing.
I'm down with that.
Okay. So, do you want to explain the plot, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I guess I'll give a brief synopsis.
Mm-hmm.
So, The Ritual follows a group of, 4 or 5 friends?
I think it's 4.
5 to start at the beginning of the movie.
It's 4.
Yeah, but at the beginning.
Oh, the one friend. Okay.
Yeah. But most of the movie follows 4 friends
Uh-huh.
who are taking this hiking journey through, I think they're in Scotland, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. Sweden.
Sweden, sorry. And so they're hiking through Sweden and basically to pay homage to their friend who has passed away.
Yep.
And on their way back from their trip, it was a 2-day hike out, and now they're heading back, and one of them gets hurt. He hurts his leg.
Yep.
So they decide to take a shortcut through the woods.
Yep.
And then scary shit ensues from there.
Yeah, the main thing that you didn't cover yet, which is kind of like a flashback because it doesn't happen in the timeline of the movie. It happened a long time ago, and it has to do with the death of that friend.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I should mention that or not, so I...
Yeah, no, definitely, because I think they show this pretty early in the movie.
Yeah, it's the very beginning of the movie. So this is the 5th friend.
Right. This is the inciting incident. This is the main emotional core of the movie.
Yeah.
They kind of hammer it in a few times throughout the movie with flashbacks and stuff. But anyway, it's probably the part that I liked the most.
I was going to say, I really liked this part too.
When I saw the beginning where we get to see this guy die, it was I was in, right?
Yeah. And I was really shocked too.
Yeah. So there's 2 guys. They're in a convenience store, liquor store.
Yeah, well, the group of 5 had gone out and for dinner or drinks or whatever.
Yep.
And they were actually trying to plan this vacation that they wanted to go on a mate's vacation, they were calling it.
Yep.
So a guy's trip, and some of them wanted to go a bro trip, and then one guy really wanted to go on this hike in the Swedish hills, basically, which is what they end up doing.
Yep.
And he's the guy that passes away because our main character Luke and that guy go into a liquor store after dinner, and
the friend that they're honoring that died, his name is Rob. So Luke and Rob go to this liquor store.
They go into this liquor store, and it's being robbed. And Luke hides, and they end up killing his friend, essentially.
So, big question, and depending on the answer, the whole thing might not even matter. If and this is probably the question that Luke is asking himself all these years later, if I had...
It's 6 months later.
Okay, 6 months later, if I had, come out from hiding and tried to help my friend or tried to, like, fight these people off or something, would I have been able to keep him from dying, or would I have just died too?
And all of his friends, I think, kind of think that too, without saying it outright to him,
right.
At least at the beginning.
Yeah. So there's a huge possibility here that maybe he could have saved his friend and he opted to not act.
He was a coward.
So some of his friends are pissed about that, and he has to struggle with that throughout the movie. So, like, lots of points from me for a horror movie or any movie having some sort of, like, emotional core for the main character, for us to see them go through something and have something to give a shit about, and something that, the movie can use for us to have resolved, throughout.
Yeah, because the movie takes a lot of different turns, but that's kind of the one common thread that's interwoven throughout all of the film.
Yeah. One of the other things I liked a lot about it, and this happens early enough that I'm not going to call it spoilers, is while they are on this journey and, the horror movie finally starts, one of the main things that keeps happening is these characters keep having, like, nightmares.
Like really severe nightmares.
And Luke will keep having nightmares recounting that experience where he decided to hide and not save his friend Rob. And I thought that was cool. I can't say, and I won't spoil, what happens at the end, but I can't say that for me personally that I felt like that thread or that arc was really resolved by the end.
No. I don't know if that's kind of like spoilerish to say.
Yeah, I think it's fine. Because it's one of my main gripes with the movie, and if you're a person out there and it bothers you when something is set up for, like, the beginning and middle of a movie and then it doesn't really have a payoff at the end, that's this movie. The payoff is not there for me.
I feel like they dedicated more time to, I'm not going to say what, but the wrong resolution.
Yeah.
Something that they should have left more unsaid, and they kind of abandoned this character's arc.
Yeah. So it's a pretty classic, as far as the rest of the plot goes, it's a pretty classic, like, people lost in the woods movie. I kept thinking of Blair Witch when I was watching.
Yeah, it really reminded me of Blair Witch. The first 2 acts were so good and so terrifying.
The thing that was interesting to me, actually, is because I kept comparing it to Blair Witch, which I'm not really a fan of personally, because I think it's really slow and boring.
I love Blair Witch.
I know that you like it. But I was thinking during this movie, like, oh, this is a better Blair Witch, because things were happening.
I was thinking that too, actually.
Things were happening. They were interesting.
It's scarier than Blair Witch.
Yeah, and people... I just loved when they would, like, wake up and everybody would be in a craze.
Yeah.
And, like, eventually it would kind of cool off and they would be back to normal. But every time they woke up in the morning, everybody was, like, freaking out from their nightmares.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool, and, like...
They were, like, terrified to the point of, like, peeing their pants.
Yeah. It was, like, scary without showing something scary.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's the scariest thing.
Yeah.
In fact, we even put this movie on, like, when we were planning on going to sleep. And we were just going to, like, fall asleep to it.
Yeah.
And you started falling asleep, and I was so scared. I was like, you need to stay up. Because I wanted to know what was going to happen, but I was, like, too scared to watch it by myself.
Yeah. But, so the movie, it follows a pretty straight, like, horror movie line. There's X number of people... They start getting picked off as the movie goes on, and we wonder throughout the whole movie why are they being picked off, what or who is it, and eventually the movie resolves that. It doesn't end up resolving really Luke's, like, personal character arc,
unless we totally missed something.
But it ends up resolving the question of like
what is happening?
What's happening?
Which I don't like. I wish that they would have left it a mystery.
I don't really care about that. Like if we talk about what was the name of the new Blair Witch Project?
Just Blair Witch.
Blair Witch.
Yeah.
That movie, which was Blair Witch, but like turned up to 11 on steroids, which I think...
I didn't really think it was, though, until like the last 20 minutes were really scary, but the rest of the movie was like really tame.
Well,
but
okay,
that's not what we're talking
sure,
about.
yeah. But anyway, I was going to say that I think that's the problem with that movie is that they turned everything up to 11 and they just have like loud shit in your face constantly. Yeah, they have loud shit in your face constantly, which is not what Blair Witch was about originally. No. And I don't even like Blair Witch, but they made it worse by making it loud. Blair Witch but loud. That's the new one. But anyway, the point that I'm trying to make is that not only did they do that, but also in the new Blair Witch, they showed you the monster.
Yeah, even though I've heard that wasn't supposed to be the Blair Witch, so I don't know what it was.
I've heard that too.
But it's not made clear in the movie. Like when we saw the movie, we were like, "Oh, that's the Blair Witch."
Yeah,
they're
whatever.
Showing her.
Whatever thing is bothering these people throughout the movie, whether it's the Blair Witch or it's a minion of the Blair Witch, like who cares? This is a thing that is after them.
And we see the thing in this movie too.
And I
hate it.
I don't like it. I think that
it's so goofy. The whole third act is just like goofy.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if I would recommend this movie to you unless you just want to watch the first 2 acts. But I think...
And then turn it off and make up your own ending.
And then just turn it off. But I think we should talk about spoilers because it sounds like we're both trying desperately to not...
I think we've said everything we can say, even though we've only talked about it a little bit.
Well, it's very simple, and I think that means there's not a lot to say, but I think that's why the first 2 acts are so good.
Yeah.
Is because it's just like, this is what's going on, this is scary, and like that's it. And then you just need to tie it together at the end in a meaningful way. But now we're going to talk about spoilers and why we don't think that it was meaningful.
Right.
So maybe go watch it, maybe don't, whatever. Spoilers.
So should we talk first about the scary things that happen in the first 2 acts that we liked?
Yeah, definitely. I think that I pretty much said, unless...
we try not to really say what happened, though.
Yeah, okay, so go ahead and get more specific.
Well, the first scary thing that happens that I can remember at least is when they're walking through the woods and they find, like, a deer or a moose, some sort of animal.
Oh, yeah.
Like, strung up and gutted in the trees.
Yep.
And it's obviously some sort of, like... They can tell that it's, like, a sign of something dangerous nearby.
Yeah, they think...
Whether it be crazy people or an animal.
Yeah, they think that it might be witchcraft, or maybe they mention that later. But
yeah, they mention that when they get to the little house.
That's immediately what I started thinking. Was like,
and the movie's called The Ritual, so it kind of... you put 2 and 2 together that, like, oh, this is some sort of, like... satanic shit or something. Some sort of worship. Yep.
So, yeah, that happens. So you liked that?
I thought it was really scary.
Okay. Yeah, that part was kind of cool to me. I think that was around the time that I was kind of falling asleep, though.
Yeah.
But I sort of remember that part. So then after that is when they find the house.
Right.
Okay. So, one thing I liked about this movie a lot, actually, I think I might be going back a little bit, but when that guy does hurt his leg, there's kind of a shift in the dynamic of the group of people. And I think this is really smart. I don't know if this is on purpose, but in a lot of movies, when you have a group of people, you have to have decisions be made of what you do next.
Yeah.
And there was a pivotal point in the movie. There was a few points like this where they had to decide to either go one way or another way, or maybe one of a bunch of different ways. And very early on in the movie, the one guy who is like kind of bitchy, or at least he's described that way by his friend.
Whiny?
Yeah.
Okay, I know who you're talking about. The guy who hurts his leg.
Yep. And so after he hurts his leg, he's like whining and being annoying, and he says like, okay, we're going this way, we have to go this way because I hurt my leg. So the rest of his friends, they don't have to listen to him, obviously, but in the context of the scene, they kind of just have to go along and do whatever he wants because he's the one that's hurt. So they kind of have to listen to him. They can't
split up.
Yeah, they can't split up.
Are you talking about when they go down the trail?
Him.
Or before they even go into the woods?
I'm talking about earlier. I can't remember which exact scene it is, but it's not the trail part. But it happens a few different times.
Because one of them suggests going through the woods, and it's not the guy who got hurt. But then he's like, if that's a faster way, then let's go the faster way. Like, I'm hurt. But he's not the one who initially suggests it.
Okay, well, there is a part where this happens, where he decides where they're going to go. And I thought it was a really cool dynamic, because why does he get the right to make the decision of where they go next? But he's the one that's the most outspoken, and he's the one that's hurt, so they kind of just go with it. So I thought that was cool. So more scary things.
What did you think of the little cabin that they end up staying in?
That was probably one of my favorite parts of the movie.
I think it was the scariest part of the movie.
If not my favorite, yeah.
So this is the first night that they spend in the woods, which they actually thought they'd be able to get through the woods in like a day, so they didn't even think they would be camping overnight.
Right.
And it's raining, so they stumble upon this like cabin that seems to be abandoned, so they decide to stay in it.
Yep.
And it's creepy as fuck.
Yeah, there's something weird upstairs that they see.
They've also noticed before they go into the cabin some like symbols carved into the trees, and Luke, our main character, has like thinks he hears stuff in the woods. Mm-hmm. So there's obviously some creepiness already having gone down.
Yeah.
But in the cabin, they are looking around, and one guy goes upstairs, and he sees this thing.
Yep.
So, and it looks like the animal that was hanging in the tree. Like it's made of straw, so it's like, you know, what's that called? Like a relic, or, you know?
Yeah, like, I don't know. It's like
something that they would worship, like it's man-made.
Yeah. It's like some sort of a witchcraft doll or something like that. Yeah, it's made of like
straw or something. Yeah, kind of like a doll.
Yeah, but big.
Right.
But they see that upstairs, and this part of the movie is probably my favorite because characters going to bed is always interesting in these movies. You know, movies like Blair Witch, where it's kind of like you're at your most vulnerable when you're asleep. So what the fuck is going to happen when these people wake up? Probably some crazy shit.
Right.
And so the entire movie I'm kind of expecting really like jumpy things to happen, but there's not very many jump scares.
Which is good.
I counted at least one that was like a false jump scare. It was like a joke. It was like a character like talking to another character. But I don't know if there was actually any real jump scares with the actual supernatural thing going on.
Yeah, I can't remember any.
But anyway, that's what I would expect from this scene with these guys going to sleep. But what they end up doing instead, which is so good, is that they have our main character wake up. He
wakes up outside.
Yep, he wakes up outside, and he has like some
sort of symbol has been like cut into his chest.
Yeah, he has these cuts on his chest that are in some shape.
Yeah.
And so he goes back to the cabin.
And everyone is like freaking out.
Everyone is in a craze. Upstairs where that thing was, one of his friends is like
still asleep, but like worshiping that thing. So he's kind of like sleepwalking.
Yeah.
But sleep worshiping.
Yeah, he's like kneeling down.
That was really scary.
That was cool. And then one of the friends wakes up and he like pissed himself because he's having some horrible nightmare.
The other one is like calling out his wife's name, which is kind of called back to later.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought that was cool because that wasn't really anything specific or any kind of like monster.
Yeah, we didn't see anything.
Basically nothing happened except for 4 guys woke up after having nightmares and were like sleepwalking and freaking out. But that alone was really cool because obviously it's being caused by whatever this presence is in the woods.
Right.
And so that is the thing that makes it scary without having to show it. So I think that this movie, for some reason, does like a home run job of showing instead of telling.
Yeah.
Until the fucking end.
Until the end.
Are there other parts
so
that
close to being like really special?
Yeah. Are there other parts that you really liked before we talk about the crappy parts?
Yeah, there's one part that you actually didn't notice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's when you were like falling asleep, but
Yeah.
it's after they leave the cabin
Mm-hmm.
and they're like hiking through the woods,
Yep.
and two of the guys are like just like really going slow. Like the guy who's hurt, and then the other guy. What's his name? Do you remember?
I've got the names here: Phil, Dom, Hutch, and Luke.
Phil.
Okay.
So Phil and Dom are
Mhm.
like going super slow. Dom has the hurt leg and he can like barely walk, so he's like, I need a break.
Yep.
And they're all kind of pissed at him. They're like, we need to get out of here. Some weird shit's going down.
Yep.
And Luke decides to like climb to the top of the little hill and see if he can see anything.
I remember.
And then he gets into this like little group of trees at the top of the hill.
Yep.
And he hears some stuff and he's kind of like looking around, and all you see is like a hand wrapped around one of the trees,
Okay.
and then it goes away.
Yeah.
That was really scary.
So I remember this part, but I didn't see the hand.
Yeah, it was kind of camouflaged because it was like a grayish hand.
Yeah. Yeah, but I remember that part because I remember after you were like, did you see that hand? And
Yeah.
I was like, no.
I was like, ah.
That's really cool, though. That's kind of a really good example of treading that line where you're starting to show things.
I feel like it was kind of meant for some people to not notice, too.
Yeah, yeah. That's really cool. I like that.
And some of the guys, like, they're like, we can't, like, lose our minds in here. You know, you just, you know, it's your imagination.
Yeah.
Don't feed into this.
Yeah.
So I think they're trying to, you know, pretend like everything's okay and it's all in their heads.
I like that. That reminds me of, like, if you're ever watching a movie or TV show or anything and somebody has to hold their breath for a set amount of time, you either hold your breath or you imagine, like, ooh, could I hold my breath for that amount of time?
Right.
And sometimes you'll, like, do it along with them just to, like, see if you can do it for as long as they did it. And it's kind of the same thing. They're kind of getting into your head with a line like that, saying, like, okay, we just have to get over this, like, don't think
Keep
about...
our heads on straight.
Yeah, like, so they're telling you, like, keep your head on straight, like, try to relax. And during a horror movie, you're always on edge, and you can try to relax, and maybe it lasts for a second, but if there's a noise or something just happens just the wrong way, then you're back into,
always
like, that...
waiting for the next, like, scare.
You're back into that tense, like, waiting for the next scare, like you said. And so I think that's kind of meta, actually, and I like that a lot.
Meta world peace.
Yeah. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah. I'm a fan.
Yeah. Okay.
So now we're kind of at the point where it gets to the end of the second day and they have to camp again.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually find like an old abandoned tent and a wallet in it from
1984.
Yeah, like the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So someone else who never escaped those woods, presumably.
Yeah.
And that kind of freaks them out a little bit more.
That's kind of cool. What I actually thought that was going to be some stuff from someone who was there very recently, but the fact that it said 1984 on it made me kind of, like, that was a little bit of a scare for me. Like,
yeah.
Ooh, this has been going on for a long time. Mm-hmm. Whatever's going on here has been going on for a while.
Yeah, I liked that.
Yeah, that was cool. So...
And because two of the guys have, like, gotten so slow... Hutch says, Luke, tomorrow morning, how about you go ahead by yourself? I'll stay with these two. You go get help. Like, you're, like, the strongest of us left. You can make it out.
Yep.
And that night, one of them gets taken.
Uh-huh. Are you trying to get me to start talking about the third act?
No. When Hutch gets taken.
He gets taken. I'm not following.
You don't remember?
I remember him saying that to him, like, you're the strongest, you go and find help.
Yeah, and then they all go to sleep.
Uh-huh.
And they wake up in the middle of the night. Everyone's in a frenzy again.
Uh-huh.
And
Dom one
says
guy's just gone, right?
Right, that's what we're talking about.
Okay. Yeah, I remember now.
And Dom says, it took Hutch.
Mm-hmm.
And they can hear their friend screaming.
Yeah.
And they try and go after him.
Oh, I remember this. Okay.
Yeah, so they try and go after him. But then they're like, we're going to lose our stuff because they just left their camp sitting there. They're like, that's everything that we have. We need our supplies. We need to go back and then we'll, figure out what to do from there.
Yeah.
And on their way back to the tents, and the sun has kind of come up by now, they find their friend, like, hung up in one of the trees, gutted, like that animal that they saw when they first went into the woods.
Yep. That's kind of interesting, actually. The thing you said about them going to find the friend, following his voice, and then one of the guys saying, like, we're probably going to get lost. Let's go back to the tent. Like, in any other horror movie, they wouldn't care about that. They would just keep going and following the voice.
Yeah, I think it's as rooted in reality as it can be, being like a supernatural story.
I thought that was really interesting that the characters decided that they would, because their friend is screaming, so you expect to wait another night and he's still going to be alive. Like, in another horror movie, they would be like, we have to go get him.
Yeah. It reminded me, of Blair Witch Project when they can hear their friend screaming. They don't go after him, though.
Yeah.
The Blair Witch Project.
Yeah, you're right.
Too dangerous.
Yeah. Okay. I remember that part. So you liked that part?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I liked their reaction to it. I feel like it was a very, like, real human reaction. They were like, what are we going to tell his wife? What about his kids?
Yeah.
And they debate on whether or not they should bury him. They're like, we should say something. And they end up deciding that they need to just, like, get the fuck out of there. And they cover him with some branches.
Yep.
And peace out.
Mm-hmm.
So we're one man down now.
We're down to 3 boys.
2 of them are, like,
basically
barely there anyway.
Yeah. The one has the hurt leg and the other one is mentally not there.
Yeah.
And our main guy is the one who is, to his best ability, persevering. So.
And he's continuing to have these flashbacks to the event with his friend in the liquor store. And you are waiting for, like, a similar situation to come up where he has, like, an opportunity to save one of his friends. And actually does this time and doesn't just hide like a coward.
Yep.
And that never happens.
Never comes. This movie is based on a book. I wonder how the book ends.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, I really wonder how the book ends. And all the goofy stuff that happens at the end, I feel like would fit perfectly in a book. I was
just gonna say, I think it would be much better in a book.
You can imagine shit in your head with a book, and it works a lot better than having some... We're already in spoilers. CGI, fake-looking monster.
Like tree moose monster.
Yeah. Like, there's nothing very scary about a CGI tree moose monster on a movie. But maybe if you were reading pages and it was like explaining that there is this beast and it had giant horns and whatever, then you could... your imagination would kind of take over and you would imagine something really scary or disgusting or what have you. But it ends up just looking like computer-generated fucking fake thing.
Yeah. Something else I did like is, or something that's at least interesting. I'm not sure if I liked it or not.
Yeah.
One of them, at least one of them, kind of had a premonition of what was going to happen. Do you remember that?
No, remind me.
The guy, Dom, with the hurt leg.
Yeah.
The first night that they spend in the woods, he wakes up screaming his wife's name. And he says, they question him about it, and he says that he was just having a nightmare and doesn't want to talk about it. And skipping forward a little bit, the other friend has died, and we are only left with Luke and Dom. And they've been captured by this group of like people who live in the woods. And he says, I never told you what my nightmare was about. And he says that he was having a nightmare about being offered up to the creature, the monster, whatever it is that's been, hunting them in the woods. And they haven't seen it yet at this point.
Right.
So he says, I'm going to die. Like, I'm going to be sacrificed to this thing. But you're not going to die, Luke. And you're going to make it out. And you're going to burn this place to the ground. And that's what happens.
That is kind of cool that he had that premonition.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were saying just a second ago about the flashbacks we have so many times in the movie to Luke being a so-called coward at the liquor store. And, how do you resolve that? Obviously, the way you do it, like you said, is you have him in some situation where he has the option to either cower away and hide or fight and save his friends, and that option never comes up in the movie. I know that he does end up fighting back, but it's not to save anyone because everybody, everybody's dead by then. So whatever kind of arc you're expecting from the main character, it doesn't come to a close. It doesn't really resolve itself. And the movie really, really hints at it for us. They keep showing us that liquor store scene like it's important.
Yeah. And we even talked about it during the movie. We're like, oh, this is going to be something that happens.
Yep. And that would have been so great. I know that in a way it would have been predictable because we, wrongly predicted it. But movies have a certain structure for a reason. When you go off of the path of how storytelling works, you have to be already like a master of storytelling to make it work when you do it the wrong way. So 9 times out of 10, if you have something set up and it doesn't get a payoff later, like, it's not going to jive with me as a viewer. And that's what this movie does. We have all of that set up, and then all of his friends are dead, so he has nobody to save. He does end up going and fighting the thing with an axe, and there almost seems to be a smart sequence there where he bows down to the thing, and
it's kind of forcing him to bow down.
Yeah. I was thinking that they were gonna do something cool with that, where like he was tricking it.
Yeah, because something we haven't mentioned is kind of calling back to the symbol that he had carved into his chest.
Yeah.
He, for some reason, has been like chosen. To worship this thing. So all of his friends were meant to be like sacrificed, and then he was meant to like stay in this like little village of people who worship this monster in the woods
and continue to sacrifice more people.
And apparently they're like immortal too, so forever.
Yeah. Something that was weird that maybe requires a YouTube explained video that I'm not sure I understood was all of the moaning skeletons in the attic.
Yeah. There's some weird stuff.
Was that like...
towards the end of the movie. I feel like, in my head, I was like, oh, these are like the old people. Like, they're the oldest of the group.
Yeah.
And even though they live forever, they've kind of like turned into little like mummy type things where they can't like live anymore, but they're still there.
Yeah,
that's what I thought, but that was,
Well, that's what I was just gonna say. Is
that's just based on my own thoughts.
Yeah, that's kind of a cool idea. I don't know if it really is scary in this context. I don't know what else it would be. Yeah, but I don't know if it was really scary. But he starts burning all of these skeleton people alive, all these mummies. And that sequence was funny to me. He punches that lady in the face, which was funny to me. There is a lot of stuff that is just, you kept calling it goofy.
Yeah.
in this
oh, this is so lame.
in this third act, it completely has a tone shift and it just becomes a different movie.
Yeah, and we skipped over the fact that when they're like imprisoned at this little place in the woods,
Luke and Dom.
yeah, most of them only speak Swedish, but there's one girl who speaks English.
Yep.
And talks to him a couple times, and you think like, oh, maybe she'll help him escape, or he'll help her in some way. Like,
Yeah, maybe that'll turn into something.
maybe it'll be something, and it was literally nothing.
Yeah, it
she
led
just
to
dies.
nothing. Yeah.
So many like abandoned opportunities
Yeah.
in this movie, and instead they just completely spell out what this stupid thing is. The girl who speaks English, like, explains it to him, and it's just
She
like
explains it to us.
right. It's just it's such obvious like exposition. You know, it's
Yep.
telling, not showing, and it's so clunky.
She basically
and awkward.
looks at the camera and is like,
This is what the monster is. This is what it does. This is what's gonna happen next. Like, oh, I hate that.
Yeah. Why? Like, there's
We
some.
could have figured it out. Like, even
Yeah.
if we don't figure out everything, at least, you know, we're like trying to solve the mystery ourselves.
There's something about exposition that I think is really interesting. For me, I think that exposition is best used at the beginning of a movie because you can kind of forgive exposition, or at least I can, when it happens at the beginning.
At least understand it.
Yeah. I can understand it when it's at the beginning because it's kind of setting you up and setting up your expectations. But when a movie has already started and they already have not explained something to you,
And they've given us all of like the puzzle pieces.
and they
you know?
give you little clues, then the expectation is that that's going to continue throughout the movie and that they're not going to spell it out for you. So my expectations were not met because they did explain it to me.
And maybe this is another problem caused by it being a book originally, because I feel like in a book it's less appreciated by a reader to like have an ending left open like that. I feel like in a book you invest so much time in it that maybe the author feels a responsibility to give a resolution.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't translate to film well.
Right.
But I haven't read the book, so I don't know.
I haven't read anything in forever, but when I do watch movies, I do appreciate movies that don't hold my hand, and I do occasionally appreciate a movie that has a open ending.
Yeah, I like open endings in movies for the most part.
Yeah.
But in books, not so much. Like, I read a series a few months ago called Delirium, and it was left open-ended, and I was so pissed. I was like, I just read 3 books to be gypped in the end.
Yeah.
Like, what happens?
Sometimes it depends on what it is that they're leaving out for you. Because I think in the case you're talking about, a lot of the things that they didn't end up giving to you were things that they set up, which is also a problem with this movie. This movie sets up this character having this fatal flaw where he is, you know, supposedly a coward, and he never overcomes that flaw. It never happens.
Keep, like, spoon-feeding it to us the whole movie. Like, don't forget about this, don't forget about it.
Even the freaking monster, like, says it outright to him. It calls him a coward. It says, "You're a coward." And it's like, okay, he has to prove the villain wrong by the end of this movie. He has to. And the only thing he ever does is, like, fight it with an axe.
Yeah. Super lame.
Yeah. So, overall, this movie did a lot of things really, really well.
I think I didn't even realize that I wasn't liking it until the part when he's like being chased by the thing in the woods.
Yeah.
Because I liked the first 2 acts so much that I was like, okay, I really like this. I can't wait to see what happens. And then like I realized like towards the end I was like, the last like 20 minutes of this have been really stupid.
Yeah.
I'm not happy where this went.
Yeah.
And that's when I said, like, I don't think I like where this has gone. This is really goofy.
There's a part where I can't really describe it with any other word other than goofy, but there's a part
It's a goofy movie.
where there's a part somewhere between the second and third act where I started to realize that something different was happening. And it was the way that they actually shot something where I don't know how they had been shooting it throughout the entire rest of the movie, but they ended up cutting to a shot where it was in front of two guys running.
And you commented on it, right? You were like, that seems like a cut that would be used in like a comedy.
Yeah. It reminded me of something that would be in like Hot Fuzz or Shaun of the Dead or some other like visual comedy.
It's when there were only two guys left and they were still in the woods at this point.
Yeah.
And they were like, we need to get out of here. Like on three. 1, 2, 3. And then it cuts to them like running and there's like music playing that's a little, I don't know. You thought it was like comical.
Yeah. Something about maybe it was the timing, maybe it was the way they were shooting
That's
it.
the point when it starts to go downhill for me too. And then they like stumble across this path of like torches, and then they stumble into the village of people who like worship that thing in the woods.
Yeah.
And then it just gets shittier from there on out.
So I don't know, like that's so weird that I would have noticed something like that, and then the movie goes off the rails.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that means something. There's only one director, I'm pretty sure, David Bruckner.
Well, that could have been like a cinematography thing too, just like the way the shot was set up.
Yeah.
One thing I want to shout out about the cinematography that was, I thought, great.
Yeah.
The first like half of the movie, there were a lot of shots of them from kind of like far away.
Yeah.
And it gave you the feeling like they were being watched.
Yeah. Okay.
I thought like that really creeped me out.
That's cool. I didn't notice that.
Yeah. That's the vibe I got. So I really liked that.
That's awesome. There have been a lot of really pretty movies that have come out lately. And I've kind of missed a lot of them. Like that new Blade Runner movie that came out. Apparently it was like visually stunning, but I didn't end up seeing it. But I'm starting to appreciate more and more over time when a movie is shot well and things look good.
Yeah, I don't normally notice it, so that's why I thought I should shout out about that, because I rarely notice things like that.
Yeah.
I wish I did though.
Well, over time, it's like
I think I'm getting better. I think I'm starting to notice things like that more.
yeah, it's kind of like a skill. Like I don't really notice, and like nobody, especially when you're a kid and you first start watching movies, like you've described it before as just like watching things move on a screen.
We've been talking about this recently, how like when you're a kid and you watch movies, or maybe it's just me and I was really stupid.
This was how it was for me too.
But when you would watch movies as a kid, it's like you were just staring at like moving pictures and you didn't even have a concept of a story. And I'm not even talking about like little kid, but like elementary age, where you should be able to understand things like that.
Yeah. But it took me forever. I feel like I could remember myself in middle school, maybe even high school, not understanding what a theme is and like the more nitty-gritty parts of like how stories work and why they are important and things like that. So it's just a skill that you don't develop unless you're working on it.
It's a skill that you don't even really know exists.
Yeah.
For a while.
But I feel like when I watched movies forever, for the longest time, for my whole life, I didn't care about the music in the movie. I didn't notice the music in the movie, especially if it wasn't like, you know, like I'm not talking about like music with words in it, like The Lion King.
The score?
I'm talking about like the score. Like I would never notice anything about a score, 3 years ago. But then you watch enough movies and you start noticing differences. And then I ended up watching Gattaca, and the music was so good and it was so powerful, and I was like, okay, now I have to pay attention to music, so now I'm always listening for music when I'm watching movies.
I also couldn't tell the difference between good acting and bad acting for the longest time.
Yeah.
And I thought like, people just read the script. It's like, how can you be a bad actor?
Right.
That couldn't be further from the truth, you
Yeah.
know? Like, I'm very picky with
Absolutely.
performances.
I was just watching Unbreakable the other day, and the score, which I maybe have watched that movie 2 or 3 other times, but it was a while ago. so I wasn't really paying attention to the music. But I was noticing that the score, especially in the parts where Bruce Willis is being more heroic, reminded me a lot of the music from Gattaca, and I was like, oh, this sounds really similar. So those are the kinds of things that you don't really notice until you try to notice them.
Right.
So, no harm, no foul. But this movie, The Ritual, did harm me. So there is a foul. Because the third act sucked, and they explained everything, and it was terrible. And
I would rather have a movie be shitty from start to finish than be really good for 2/3 of it and then have a shitty ending. Because it's like you get so excited and
what
you
a
get
waste.
so into it. Yeah. What a waste.
You can't go back to that movie and watch it
down.
and be like, if you have a friend that hasn't seen it, be like, oh, man, you know what's a really good example of a movie that's really tense with people in the woods and stuff is The Ritual. We gotta watch it, but
It might be a good like popcorn movie.
yeah. But
It's scary and
I'm
it
saying
gets super cheesy.
I'm saying like you can't go to your friend and be like, yeah, we gotta watch this movie, but I gotta turn it off about 2/3 of the way through because there's some stuff in it that is really stupid and you're gonna hate it.
Right.
But if you just watch this part of it, it's a really good example of a horror movie.
It'd be a good like campfire ghost story.
Yeah.
If you're ever camping and telling scary stories,
Tell
that one, but just change the ending.
Yeah. You in that format, maybe the ending would work.
Maybe.
But in a movie, it doesn't. It especially doesn't work because of technology. If you make up a fake animal and you give it these glowing eyes and a black pit for a face, and you give it moose horns and you make it really big and it's got these gray hands, and you just mash all this together in some 3D modeling thing, and then you put it in a movie with real people in real environments, unless you did a really good job,
It's gonna stick out like a sore thumb.
it's gonna stick out. It's gonna suck. It's gonna look like shit. And for some people, this doesn't bother them, but for me, it takes me out of the movie when something looks bad like that. And this monster did not look good. And that's one of the reasons also, not only just for like horror reasons, but for just practical reasons. That's why it's usually really good to not show the monster in a
Yeah, I
horror
was just
movie.
gonna say like know your limits. If you don't have the budget to make it look really good, work with that and make it something that remains unseen.
Do you
for the most
remember The Conjuring 2?
part. A little.
Do you remember how for most of the movie we were following some thread about some monster? I don't remember which one.
Is it the nun?
It might be the nun. But then for some reason, randomly, we go off on a side quest and run into another monster, which is that like long-legged guy that appears out of nowhere. He's like a big CGI, like tall, like striding.
I don't remember. Sorry.
I think he's wearing like checkered something.
I just remember.
I'll have to look it up. But anyway, the rest of the movie looked fine, but that character completely did not fit the rest of the movie. He just looked like a cartoon. So it's like, why are you here? I'll have to look it up sometime and show you, but for anybody who's listening, in The Conjuring 2, there's some stupid shit that goes on.
Yeah. Not the best horror movie. I really liked the first Conjuring, though. I thought that one was scary and pretty well done.
Yeah, The Conjuring is a movie that I don't really remember very well, but
I think a lot of people like that, though, so it's not like we're telling you anything you don't know.
yeah, but I remember liking it a lot. I don't really remember what happens in it, but I remember liking it a lot. James Wan.
Yeah.
Saw.
Insidious.
Yeah, I've never seen any of the Insidious movies.
We watched Insidious, the first one, together a long time ago.
For real?
Yeah. I don't remember it either, so I'm not surprised that you forgot it.
Huh.
We watched it like once 6 years ago.
Wow. Was it good?
No, I didn't like it.
Oh.
I don't remember it now, so I don't remember why, but
Yeah. The Crooked
I never saw
Man.
any of the other ones.
He was called the Crooked Man in The Conjuring 2. You don't remember
No
him?
memory of that.
Hold on. I'm going to pull up the Crooked Man, and I'm going to show you a picture of him. 2016.
Speaking of the Crooked Man, how does everyone feel about Slender Man being a movie coming out soon?
I'm not even really sure that I understand the source of where Slender Man comes from, because I originally knew it as a video game.
It was created by a guy that entered like an online contest.
Okay.
So he just like invented this lore about this fake monster.
Yeah.
And you know, there was actually two like 12-year-old girls who killed their friend, or she actually survived. They tried to kill their friend because they believed in Slender Man.
Yeah, I kind of remember that.
Really fucked up story.
Yeah, stupid kids. I'm having trouble finding it, but it looked something like this. You don't remember that guy?
No, but it looks really stupid.
Yeah, he was in The Conjuring 2 for like 2 seconds.
I don't really want to see stuff like that. You know?
Like,
Another example is like
the monster, you mean?
the Babadook.
Yeah.
You don't really see the Babadook until the end, and then like the monster looks really stupid.
Yeah, it does.
Stop showing me these monsters.
Don't show us the monsters. You know a movie I never watched, but I heard it's really good, and apparently the monster looks good?
What's that?
Alien?
Oh, I've seen Alien.
Okay.
Alien's really good.
Yeah. Would you classify it as a horror movie? A lot of people do.
Yeah.
So in that, I haven't seen it, so I'm just asking, do they show the monster a lot, or does it only show up kind of at the end?
You don't see it like in detail until towards the end.
Okay.
It's been a long time since I've seen it too, so I don't even really remember a lot of the movie. But
Okay.
because the first time you see it is when it comes out of the guy's chest. You know, that's like a famous
Yeah.
thing.
Yep.
And it's like a little thing, and then it grows and turns into this big evil alien.
Yeah. That's a movie I've been meaning to watch for a long time.
We should make a movie night of it.
Yeah, we should watch Predator, because that's on HBO Go right now.
I've never seen it.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. I wonder if Alien's on anything. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to say about this. Are you just about ready to wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, we're at 52 minutes.
Oh, I didn't think we'd be able to talk about this movie that long.
Yeah, we talked about some other things, and man, the movie just promised a lot and didn't deliver on it, so I'm very disappointed, and I will say I would not recommend it.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't recommend it.
It feels weird because I don't want to lose the time that I had watching the earlier parts, because I want to keep that in my mind for like later horror movies I watch to compare. But as a movie, I think that if you're listening right now, you could probably skip it. Probably won't gain much from watching it. So just throw it in the proverbial digital Netflix blender and skip it.
On a better note, what are some scary movies that we would recommend for someone who wants a good scare?
Scary movies we would recommend. I liked It Follows.
I love that movie.
I don't know if it was necessarily scary for me, but
it's not. I wouldn't go as far to call it like horror.
But
it's kind of like a step down from that.
It follows a lot of horror things, so if you're into horror, you'll recognize a lot of stuff. And it definitely has a cool idea that kind of induces like dread. Mm-hmm. So It Follows is cool.
It has a great score.
Yeah, that movie sounds cool.
Mm-hmm.
What are other horror movies I like?
I don't know if I would go as far to call this one a horror, but I was thinking about it recently, and this is a really good movie. Triangle.
Triangle,
which is kind of like an indie movie from 2009.
Yeah. You're not allowed to recommend Triangle.
Why not?
Because it's a time travel movie, and we don't do time travel movies.
Well, I love time travel movies.
Actually, Triangle is probably
Does it pretty well.
an example of a movie that does time travel correctly as much as it can because there's a loop.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, is that a spoiler?
Spoiler alert.
No.
I don't know.
But anyway, yeah, Triangle was pretty cool. I had a good time with it. Triangle is a movie that people call out as being a copy of this movie called Time Crimes.
Never seen it.
I actually have seen it, and
Yeah.
yeah, the reason I saw it is funny because I saw Triangle first with you. I liked it. And then I kept seeing people say, oh, Time Crimes is the original Triangle. Triangle just rips off of Time Crimes. And I was like, okay, whatever. Time Crimes was like maybe an older movie. I think that was the reason that I didn't end up watching it. But anyway, I didn't end up watching it. And then I ended up taking some sort of a philosophy class in college. And one of the topics we talked about was time travel because we were talking about like causality, because we were talking about like law and whether or not, you know, the way you can tell if somebody is responsible for something is because they started the chain of events or not. And if you introduce time travel into the mix, then it completely fucks all that up because then things don't go the way that we usually expect them to go.
Mm-hmm.
So the professor, on a day that he was like out at a conference or something, he had us watch Time Crimes. He had like,
That's funny.
yeah, he had like a sub come in or something and like set up the movie, and we watched it, and it was exactly like Triangle. The story was almost identical, and they did the same kind of time travel, like the correct kind of time travel, but it was wow. He's like, it's been an hour, guys.
Yeah.
But anyway, the movie was worse. I liked Triangle better. Time Crimes had like kind of corny acting, and some of the things in it were just a little too silly. It was goofy. It was like The Ritual. But anyway, yeah, Triangle. You should watch Triangle. You should watch the first Conjuring film. You should watch It Follows.
I really liked Green Room with Anton Yelchin.
You should watch Green Room.
Probably my favorite actor ever.
Probably not a horror movie,
passed
though.
away.
Would you say?
Too young.
Yeah.
I think it was a horror movie.
Yeah?
It's not supernatural in any way. It's kind of reminds me of like a home invasion film, but it's not.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, that's a good movie. I feel like I don't like tons of horror movies.
It's hard to find good ones.
Yeah.
We should make a list of our favorite horror movies.
Yeah, that might be a task. Maybe that'll be the next one.
Yeah. Be on the lookout.
Yeah.
Comment down below and let us know if you'd like to see that.
Yeah, go ahead and just throw the old comment down there and let us know. Do you want to hear about our favorite horror movies, or do you want to hear about something completely different? Let me know.
Yep.
All right. Calling it?
Let's call it.
All right. See ya.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.